January 18th, 2023, and it is day 196 of SQL. And today we are answering the question of how many words are there for each part of speech, and that will make sense in one moment. So here we have two tables. We have the vocabulary table, which contains the word, vocabulary word, and the part of speech. So dog is a noun, happy is an adjective, run is a verb. All right, and then we have a second table that contains the definitions corresponding to those vocab words. So you'll notice, how does it know how to match like what's what, like what definition belongs to what vocab word? You'll notice that in over here there's an ID, although it is auto increment, meaning it's automatically added, so you don't have to literally add it here just as you did over here, even though they already did, which is weird. So they have like a separate thing, like vocab ID, but if even if it wasn't there, you could still say that this ID matches to this ID, but it's the same thing. But in this case, there's a vocab ID and it just has its own thing. And so, for example, if I'm like, okay, I want to know what word corresponds to this definition, I know that it has a vocab ID of three. So I could just go back up here and say, okay, that definition, which is to move swiftly on foot, corresponds to the word run because it has the ID of three in the vocabulary table. All right, but we don't want to do that manually. We want to do that automatically, or I guess queryingly. How do you even say that? Automatic, whatever. Anyway, we want to do it using SQL. Okay, so they want us to use a left outer join so that the words are listed even if they don't have a definition and don't have any order by. So basically, they want us to join both tables, and even if there's a word here that doesn't have a definition, they still want it in the join table. And also, just kind of a use case, you might be asking, okay, like, why would it have a word? Maybe there's missing values. Or maybe you're a teacher and you are just filling out, I don't know, this is an assignment to your students that you gave to your students, and you're just trying to figure out which words they haven't found a definition for. So, I don't know. We'll make it up as we go. So yeah, so the first thing we want to do is select this part of speech, the definition, and the word. The part of speech we can find in the vocabulary table. So what I'll do is I'll select the vocabulary and then I'll just do dot. Oops, why did okay. Don't know why it's doing that. Select vocabulary dot part of speech. Right? So that's what it is. It's kind of like in pandas, I mean in Python, where you have your object and then you can like get the attributes of that object. So I have my vocabulary table and I'm getting the attribute, the part of speech attribute from vocabulary table. I guess in a panda series kind of way. Anyway, whatever. So vocabulary dot part of speech, and then they also want the definition and the word. So the definition we get from over here. So we get definitions dot definition, and then they also want the word, which is actually in the vocabulary table. So have that, and then we're selecting that from the vocabulary table, left joined, left outer join, joined with the definition table on the columns that they have in common, which in this case, you could either do, I believe I could do just vocabulary.id and then definitions.id, but I could also do vocabulary.id and definition.vocab.id. It's pretty much the same thing. So I'll try both ways just to show you. So vocabulary.id is equal to definition.id. So we're just basically saying, hey, these columns are the same. And you don't actually see vocabulary ID here because again, it's automatically added, but you do see it in the query results. So now you'll see the actual table. You have the part of speech, the definition, and the word, and they are matched up with IDs. And you'll notice that because it's a left outer join, right? Because it's a left outer join, it includes those words that don't have definitions. So you might be a teacher, and again, this might be an assignment you gave to your students, and you had them fill out the definition given a word, and you had them fill out the part of speech, and you notice, okay, well, they didn't finish preposition and conjunction, so whatever, maybe that's the use case. So yeah. And then if we didn't have outer join, oops, not outer join, I meant left outer, then it wouldn't include those that don't match up, right? Because what it's doing is trying to find a matching ID. So this table is trying to find a matching ID to this one, and if it doesn't, then it just doesn't include it. But if you do left outer, then it does include it because it's like including the outer ones that are left out from the left table. And then again, I said that you could also do vocab ID because it is the same thing. It just puts it in a different order for some reason, but you still see that this is null and then this one is null as well. All right, but I'm gonna leave it as ID because I like it that way. Let's see. Okay, and then it says create another query that will result in one row per each word with its part of speech and the definition. Sort the rows alphabetically by the word and name. That doesn't make sense. You should always group by blah blah blah. How many words are there for each part of speech? So then we should actually create a. We should create another query that will result in a row per each part of speech. That makes more sense. By the way, I created these assignments using ChatGPT, so that's why sometimes it doesn't make sense. So I actually have to go through them and do them and just edit them so that I see until it's good. With each, well, we don't really need this. With each part of speech, um, by the part of speech, I guess. Um, Answer the question, how many words are there for each part of speech? And so then that would be, yeah. Okay, let's do that. So in this case, I would select this part of speech, which would be this here. And then I would say, okay, from again, it's the same thing. Honestly, I'm just gonna copy this. It's the same thing except that we're just querying from it. And then instead of doing this, I'm going to group by um the part of speech. But then I'm also going to select the count. So how many times the part of speech shows up in the table, right? And I'm gonna say as, I guess, what do we call it? I mean, we could just call it count, to be honest. It doesn't matter. So count. Or I guess we could say words, right? So how many words do we have in our data table that are for each part of speech? So we have 3 adjectives, we have 2 conjunctions, 3 nouns, 2 words that are preposition, and then 3 words that are verbs, right? And we see that over here as well, which is pretty cool. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much it. We answered the question. And it says alphabetically, although it's already alphabetically. Yep, it's already alphabetically. But let me see. If I do order by, let's say, part of speech, no, descending, ascend, oh, it did change. Yep, so descending would be the opposite. Okay, just trying to remember that. And then I guess there's one more thing I wanted to say. What did I want to say? Oh yeah, that I think this would be the same thing result. This would be the same result. Like, it doesn't matter. The reason for this is just in case you have, like, let's say you had vocabulary in like a column named vocabulary in both tables, then SQL wouldn't know from which table to select the vocabulary column from, like it wouldn't know which vocabulary column you want, like from this table or from that table. So that's why you have to specify, okay, from the vocabulary table, oh, I'm sorry, the part of speech column. From the vocabulary table, I want the part of speech column, right? So this would be like, just in case another table has a part of speech column, I meant. But you could also do this, but then at this point, if it already knows what I'm doing, I just say part of speech, because it's not going to select any column that's not from something that you selected already. So you could just do part of speech. Well, yeah, that's answering the question, and I think I edited it fine, right? Now create another create that was on one row for each part of speech. Sort the rows alphabetically by the part of speech. It does it automatically though. You should always group by the column that is most likely. I'll delete this because actually I grouped by the part of speech and not the ID. Answer the question, how many words are there for each part of speech? And I guess I'll just put this at the top and I'll say like hint, create another blah blah blah. I think that's more clear. And I'm gonna say make sure because I think it already does it automatically. So make sure that the rows are alphabetically ordered by the part of speech. All right, so I think I'm good for today, and that's it for today. Bye.